Abel are in the right government, and I'm saying that wrong because the demon had swapped. See, that's the problem. It's the Cain that becomes Abel, and Abel becomes Cain for revenge, spiritually and or physically. So it's the other way around. The far right was Adam, that is Cain, and the far left, I'm saying this wrong, was Adam and Abel, that is Cain and Eve, and the far left was Eve and Cain, that became Adam and Abel. And that's how it is in the completion of them, how they're swapping and switching, and what happens between the devil and the bad angels versus the good angels. And this happens to all of us in this cycle until we're new creatures in Christ. Stop that now. I think I have done my best to explain the confusion and clarify it. For social engineering example, however, how films are connected and linked with housing, is looking at the horror films, is everything to do with the government, the authorities, the police, and everything to do with the authorities, the judges, doctors and nurses, those that have major careers that affect the human race and society, including scientists, are all in that category, the horror films. And so the spirit and the message in horror film is going to portray and put into perspective that the bad is bad and the good is good. So the good guy is going to die for their sin. The good in the horror film is going to suffer the most. The bad guy suffers the least. Symbolic to the government and how they have created social engineering. The filming industry for pornography, porno, and adult film viewing and entertainment, general adult films, is symbolic for bank, economy, marriage, and employment, not unemployment. Unemployment would go into the horror category. Everything that is an unemploy. So in this instance, I have the bad is good. It's a monster and a lie, which belongs to the far right government. Good is bad, is true, which belongs to the far left government. Education, cartoons, kids programs are as bad as the horror films, because the bad is good, which is a lie, the far right government, and good is bad, is a bad guy, which is true, according to the far left government. In the education system, teaching our children through the cartoon and the children animation programming films generally. So I have completed now comparing Judas the Iscariot in the left and St. Paul. So he wanted to betray by telling lies. So he had already stolen from Jesus, and next he was lying. Compared to St. Paul, also wanted to steal Jesus' ministry and be the center of attention, in a different way, where he was a liar in order to be a thief. This is St. Paul. So he started off as a liar, and then he ended up being a thief because he denied he denied that Jesus ever existed, which is symbolic to the left government as Saint Paul. As for the far right government, it is symbolic to Judas the Iscariot, who is everything about death on the left. On the right, it's everything about false life. Everybody's forced to live a lie. So both makes me very angry. What makes me very angry is both sides tyrant. However, one side is a tyrant and a subtle bully, which is where all the cretins are. So all the cretins are a mixture of a bit of, because they have like 10 heads. They have like 10 heads, the common lots, commoners, the actual either working force or whatever. Where do they belong? The majority, the new majority. Because they have, it's a bit of both. That's what makes me angry, is those that are voting, and every year they vote as taxpayers, but they're actually cretins, because they choose a bit of both, and you can't do that. You cannot do that. You cannot choose a bit of both. You have to destroy at least one main demon, which is the one on your left or the one on the right. When I was a sinner, before I became born again, before I was set free from my sins, where did I belong? And I was very much like a feminist, and I was in the same category as my mum and dad, obviously. Yeah, I was in the same category as my mum and dad, which is the far right government, the capitalists. So the capitalists and the fascists. The fascists are a cretin. That monster with 3 to 10 heads. They're everywhere, left, right and centre. The capitalists are in the right. And those that impoverish our country and make us lose everything we work so hard for is coming from the left. So they're the opposite of capitalism. They make us rely on, the leftists would make us rely on them, so that we lose all our human rights. And that's a problem coming from the left government. As an abuser. So to close this, obviously implying that who we vote for, either the Conservatives, which is currently, it was the right, but it's now the left, in the spirit of the left. They control through this Liz Truss. I did say I wasn't going to mention any names, but I had to say it. So they control the local councils in all over England. They also look at inaccurate campaigning, which is unbelievable. Because which one is more of a liar? It is the far right that has now swapped into the far left. So it obviously wants to change. It's more of a thief than a liar now. It steals from the poor. It makes profit from making the poor suffer, as in the example of Brexit, for example. But I still want it to go ahead for my own advantage, and I won't say what that is. personal to me. So that's how it's called mismanagement. Mismanagement is actually the right government. As the example of Boris Johnson, where what we did have, now we have Liz Truss. So the far right government had been finished or failed to address urgent things. They refused to fix any problems. They were paid for doing nothing, basically, particularly for the environment protection and the infrastructure and the high housing targets, which was urgently needed, which was the right government that Liz Truss represented. She had been rebuked, and she may change now because so much has been lost as a result of not being able to protect the environment. And also, she is only looking at private property. She's not looking at social housing and council properties. So it is a thief. So let's see if it's going to take action now. If there is flooding, if there is a natural disaster, because it's very complicated, and most people listening to me may say it's a load of nonsense, but it is my analysis on how they switch and swap precisely because they're not godless and they're not God-fearing. And their priority is not to support any district in England for the poor communities. They only want to support the neighbourhood plan or market, any road, or underused buildings without any adequate response, which can be misleading and mismanaging. And she has a record for that. And so she's now given the opportunity and the challenges to change that, to stop the mismanagement and the misleading. Mismanage, but I don't think she would. It is embarrassing to say that so many people will support a satanic government. So everybody's going to suffer as a result of supporting one. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it. That so many people will support a satanic government